Queen Elizabeth shed tears as she paid her final tribute to her beloved husband, Prince Philip, today. During the Thanksgiving service at Westminster Abbey, the Queen was accompanied by members of the royal family, politicians, foreign royals and charity leaders. Princess Beatrice was also seen crying and covering her face with her Order of Service. The Queen sat in Westminster Abbey, where she married Prince Philip in November 1947, having personally ensured her beloved husband's final wishes were fulfilled after his COVID-hit funeral left her sat alone without the rousing hymns and guest he loved so much. The monarch used a stick as her son, Prince Andrew, led her to her seat to give her strength and stay Philip the final farewell he had wanted. The royal family, friends and beneficiaries of his charities attended the service. A year after her husband's death, she stood to pray and sing anthems at a 40-minute service that she helped prepare. Prince Andrew stood by her side as she entered and exited the church, holding her elbow with one hand and walking stick with the other. To commemorate the end of the Duke of Edinburgh's memorial ceremony, the Queen stood with tears in her eyes as the 1,800-strong crowd sang "Guide Me, O Thy Great Redeemer." After leaving the cathedral, the Queen walked, slumped over to the automobile with the Duke of York by her side, leading her towards the Bentley. She appeared to be concentrating extremely hard on each step, clutching her stick tightly and concentrating very hard on her stick. As the automobile slowly drove away, she seemed to regain her composure. She waved to bystanders as she arrived and left the service. The Queen and the packed Abbey had listened as the Dean of Windsor paid tribute to Philip's intellect, work ethic, sense of humour and devotion to his family. The Right Reverend David Connor described the Duke as a remarkable man who was committed to a host of down-to-earth enterprises. He pointed out that the Duke could be abrupt and suggested that at times he could forget just how intimidating he could be. Princess Beatrice was seen to give a small chuckle as the Dean remarked he could be somewhat sharp in pricking what he thought to be bubbles of pomposity or sycophancy. But she then appeared to break down in tears, covering her face with the Order of Service. The Queen, the Duchess of Cornwall and the Princess Royal were all dressed in dark green in a subtle tribute to Philip, whose livery colour was Edinburgh green. After the service, the Queen expressed her appreciation for her speech that described the impact Philip's best-remembered charitable project had on her life and career. Flowers at today's service are a patriotic red, white and blue at the Queen's request. They included dendrobium orchids, which also featured in the Queen's wedding bouquet, and Ernie Guillaume or sea holly, echoing the Duke's career in the Royal Navy and lifelong affection for the sea. There were also multiple tributes to his intellect, work ethic, sense of humour and devotion to his family and his country. Her Majesty had arrived at the side door of the church, allowing her to walk a shorter distance from Poets' Corner to the front where she was surrounded by her children and grandchildren. She stood at various points in the service, despite her own admission recently that she is struggling to move. Westminster Abbey was completely packed today to celebrate the 99-year life of Prince Philip, as Her Majesty battled mobility issues and fought off COVID to be there to say goodbye to her husband after 73 years of marriage. The event, attended by most of the Duke of Edinburgh's family and many of Europe's most senior royals, is in the starkest contrast to his pared-back funeral at Windsor last April, when Her Majesty said goodbye to her strength and stay after 73 years of marriage. The Queen chose her second son to join her in the back of her royal car for the 22-mile journey, and he was also given a front row in the church, right next to his other siblings at the service. The Queen's state limousine arrived at Poets' Yard entrance with Andrew sat beside her as they walked through the famous section of the Abbey towards her seat. In a small procession, the monarch held onto her son's elbow with her left hand and had a walking stick in her right. They walked at a slow but steady pace, both looking ahead, and at the end of the aisle they separated, with Andrew giving a last glance to his mother as she turned right. After the first hymn, Charles, who was sat next to his mother, could be seen leaning over to speak to the Queen, seated next to him, but it is not clear what was said. The Queen then delved into her black Launa handbag for her glasses to read the order of the service. After the 40-minute service, Her Majesty was escorted out of the Abbey by the Duke of York. As the monarch stopped to greet Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award holder Doyen Sonibert, Andrew stood back and at one point broke into a smile. The Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall were the first to leave Westminster Abbey alongside the Abbey's chapter. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge followed. All four royals waved at the crowd outside as they were driven away in black cars. Today, the monarch ensured that her beloved husband's final wishes are fulfilled after his COVID-hit funeral left her sat alone without the rousing hymns and guests that he loved so much. Her Majesty has been actively involved in every element of his service of Thanksgiving that has seen Westminster Abbey packed to the rafters. Even the smallest of touches have been overseen by the Queen, including the use of orchids that formed part of her 1947 wedding bouquet being used in small posies of flowers. Prince Philip's beloved sea cadets and young people who have taken his Duke of Edinburgh awards are centre stage at the service that will see the Abbey reverberate with the sound of hymns, including Guide Me, O Thy Great Redeemer. All Prince Philip's family chose to attend, apart from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. On Prince Andrew's left is his brother, the Earl of Wessex, and Edward's family, the Countess of Wessex, and their children, Lady Louise Windsor and James Viscount Severn. Across an aisle to his right is the Princess Royal, her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence, the Duchess of Cornwall, Prince of Wales, and the Queen. Prince George and Princess Charlotte also attended with the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and were sat behind the Queen. Behind Andrew and Edward's family were Peter Phillips and Zara and Mike Tyndall and their daughters.